Episode 179, Finding Direction When Life Feels Stuck, with help from AI in 2026. Good day, I'm your host Robin, and today I'd like to start with a small pause. Before we talk about feeling stuck or finding direction, take a moment and notice where you are in your life right now. Not the details, not the story, just the general sense. Does it feel open, moving, unclear, or paused? Now think of one area of your life where things feel stuck. It does not have to be dramatic. It could be work, routine, energy, motivation, or simply a sense that you are repeating the same days without knowing what should change. Let that feeling come to mind without trying to solve it. Notice what it feels like to sit with that sense of being stuck. Is it heavy? Is it frustrating? Is it quiet but persistent? Whatever you feel is enough. This is where we begin. In 2026, many people feel stuck not because nothing is happening, but because too much is happening without direction. Days are full, schedules are busy, and yet there is a sense that life is not really moving forward in a meaningful way. Feeling stuck does not always mean being inactive. Often, it means moving without intention, doing many things, but not feeling connected to them. This can be confusing because from the outside, life may look fine. Responsibilities are handled. Tasks are completed. Nothing is clearly wrong. And yet, something feels off. In moments like this, people often look for big answers. A major change. A clear sign. A bold decision. But direction rarely appears that way. Direction usually begins quietly. In 2026, many people begin to understand that feeling stuck is not a failure. It is a signal that something wants attention, not pressure. This is where AI begins to play a gentle role, not as a guide that tells you where to go, and not as a system that offers ready-made paths, but as a space where you can slow down enough to notice what is already present. When life feels stuck, the mind often becomes busy. It searches for solutions, plans, and explanations. But the more it searches, the more tense things can feel. Direction does not come from forcing clarity. Many people use AI in these moments to simply describe their situation, not to ask for advice, but to put words to a feeling that has been vague and unspoken. Once that feeling is named, it often becomes less overwhelming. You begin to see what is missing, not in terms of achievement, but in terms of meaning. In 2026, people often realize that what feels stuck is not their life, but their attention. Attention has been scattered, pulled in many directions, leaving little space for reflection. AI helps gather that attention again. It provides a quiet place where you can explore questions without needing immediate answers. Questions like, what part of my life feels most drained? What part feels ignored? What part feels ready for change, even if I don't know how? These questions are not meant to be answered quickly. They are meant to open space. When you give yourself permission to explore without rushing, direction begins to emerge naturally. Not as a clear map, but as a sense of what feels right to move toward. Many listeners describe a shift when they stop asking, what should I do next? And start asking, what feels alive for me right now? This subtle change often brings clarity where planning did not. AI supports this process by reflecting patterns. When you talk about your days, your frustrations, and your hopes, certain themes return. These themes are not random. They point toward what matters. Feeling stuck often means that an old direction no longer fits, but a new one has not yet fully formed. This in-between space can feel uncomfortable, but it is also where growth begins. In 2026, AI helps people stay with this discomfort without panicking. It does not rush the process. It allows the question to remain open long enough for a real answer to appear. As you listen, notice whether your sense of being stuck feels slightly different now. Not solved, but perhaps more understandable. Understanding does not remove difficulty, but it changes how you relate to it. We will continue from here. When life feels stuck, many people assume that something needs to be fixed. A habit, a situation, a mindset. But often, what feels stuck is not broken. It is simply waiting for attention. In 2026, this feeling is very common. Life has become full of movement, but not always full of meaning. People move from task to task, from message to message, from obligation to obligation, without feeling that any of it truly points somewhere. This creates a quiet inner tension, not dramatic enough to demand action, but strong enough to drain energy over time. Feeling stuck is often misunderstood as laziness or lack of motivation. But most of the time, it is the opposite. It is a sign that you care, a sign that you want your actions to align with something deeper, even if you cannot yet name what that is. When people feel stuck, they often try to push themselves forward. They add goals. They make plans. They look for productivity. But direction rarely comes from pushing harder. Direction comes from listening. In 2026, many people begin to use AI as a place to listen more carefully, not to the world, but to themselves. They describe their days, their frustrations, their sense of repetition. Often, just putting these experiences into words changes how they feel. Once something is named, it becomes easier to work with. A vague sense of being stuck turns into something more specific. Lack of energy, lack of meaning, lack of challenge, or sometimes simply lack of rest. AI does not tell you which of these applies. It reflects what you emphasize, what you return to, what carries emotional weight in your words. This reflection helps people realize that feeling stuck is not a single problem. It is a combination of small misalignments that have been ignored for too long. In 2026, people are learning that direction does not require a complete life change. Often, it begins with one small shift. Paying attention to what drains energy. Paying attention to what restores it. Paying attention to what feels empty, even when it looks successful. These observations are quiet, but they are powerful. Many listeners describe that once they allow themselves to stay with the feeling of being stuck, instead of rushing away from it, clarity slowly begins to form. Not as a clear plan, but as a sense of what no longer fits. Knowing what no longer fits is just as important as knowing what you want. AI supports this by offering patience. It does not rush you to define your future. It allows uncertainty to exist without labeling it as failure. This is important because feeling stuck often comes with shame. A belief that you should have figured things out by now, that you should be moving faster, that you should be more certain. In 2026, many people begin to question these assumptions. They realize that life is not a straight path, but a series of adjustments. Pauses are part of that process. When you remove shame from being stuck, the experience changes. It becomes information instead of judgment. AI helps create this shift by being neutral. It does not measure your progress. It does not compare you to others. It reflects your experience without adding pressure. Over time, this neutral reflection allows direction to appear naturally. Not because you force it, but because you create space for it. Direction often shows up as a small pull, a curiosity, a sense of relief when you imagine one option, and tension when you imagine another. These signals are subtle but reliable. In 2026, people learn to trust these signals again. They stop waiting for certainty and start listening for alignment. As you sit with this episode, return once more to the area of your life that felt stuck at the beginning. Notice whether anything has shifted, not the situation itself, but your relationship to it. Does it feel less heavy, less urgent, more understandable? That shift matters. Feeling stuck does not mean you are failing. It means something inside you is asking for care. In 2026, AI does not provide direction by pointing the way. It provides direction by helping you see where you already are. And from there, movement becomes possible again, one small step at a time. We are not finished yet. When you stay with the feeling of being stuck a little longer, something else often appears beneath it. A kind of tiredness that is not about sleep. A sense of having tried many things without feeling truly engaged. A quiet disappointment that is hard to explain, even to yourself. In 2026, many people carry this feeling quietly. Life continues, responsibilities remain, and from the outside everything may look stable. But inside, there is a sense that something important has been paused for too long. This pause is not always a problem. Sometimes it is a transition that has not yet been understood. Feeling stuck often means that an old direction has lost its meaning, but a new one has not yet become clear. This in-between space can feel uncomfortable because it does not offer certainty or movement. But it is also a space of possibility. AI supports people in this space by allowing questions to remain open. It does not demand immediate clarity. It does not push toward action. It holds uncertainty gently. Many listeners describe that when they stop trying to escape the feeling of being stuck, they begin to notice what they have been avoiding. Not because it is dangerous, but because it requires honesty. Honesty about what no longer works. Honesty about what feels empty. Honesty about what they have outgrown. In 2026, AI often becomes a quiet witness to these realizations. A place where you can say things without needing to act on them right away. A place where truth can exist before it turns into change. This matters because change forced too quickly often leads back to the same place. Direction chosen without understanding rarely lasts. When you allow yourself to explore what feels stuck without pressure, you begin to see where energy has been leaking. Perhaps into commitments that no longer fit. Perhaps into expectations that were never truly yours. Perhaps into routines that once felt safe but now feel limiting. AI does not decide which of these applies. It reflects what you emphasize, what carries weight in your words, what returns again and again. Over time, patterns emerge, and patterns point toward direction. In 2026, many people begin to understand that direction is not found by asking what they should do next. It is found by noticing what they are ready to release. Releasing does not always mean letting go completely. Sometimes it means loosening the grip, allowing space for something new to enter. Feeling stuck often improves when people stop demanding progress from themselves and start allowing curiosity. Curiosity is quieter than ambition, but it is often more honest. AI supports curiosity by responding without judgment. It does not praise or criticize your thoughts. It simply reflects them, allowing you to explore without fear of being wrong. This creates safety, and safety is essential for movement. When you feel safe enough to admit uncertainty, you also become open to small signals of direction. A sense of relief when you imagine one change. A sense of resistance when you imagine another. These signals are not loud, but they are consistent. In 2026, people learn to trust these signals again. They stop waiting for certainty and start noticing what feels sustainable. What feels like something they could live with, rather than something they must force. Direction rarely appears as excitement alone. Often, it appears as a sense of calm, a sense that something fits better, even if it is unfamiliar. As you listen now, notice whether your understanding of being stuck has changed. Not because the situation resolved, but because it feels less mysterious, less like failure, more like information. This shift is important. When you stop fighting the feeling of being stuck, it begins to guide rather than block you. In 2026, AI does not pull people out of being stuck. It helps them stay with it long enough to learn from it. And learning from it is what eventually allows movement to return. We continue. As we come closer to the end of this episode, I want to return one last time to the feeling we started with. The feeling of being stuck. Not to fix it and not to push it away, but simply to see it more clearly. Feeling stuck does not mean that you have failed. It does not mean that you made the wrong choices. Very often, it means that you have changed, while parts of your life have not caught up yet. And that gap can feel uncomfortable. In 2026, many people are learning that direction does not arrive as a clear instruction. It arrives as a gradual shift in attention. You begin to notice what drains you more than it should. You begin to notice what gives you a small sense of relief, even if it does not make sense yet. These small signals are easy to miss when life is busy. That is why having a quiet space to reflect matters so much. AI does not create direction for you. It does not tell you where to go. What it offers is a place where you can hear yourself again, without pressure, without comparison, and without the need to perform certainty. When you allow yourself to stay with the feeling of being stuck long enough, it often softens. Not because the situation changes, but because your relationship to it does. You stop seeing it as an obstacle and start seeing it as a message. That message is different for everyone. For some, it points toward rest. For others, toward change. For others, toward honesty about what they are no longer willing to carry. Direction grows from that honesty. In 2026, many people find that once they stop demanding immediate answers from themselves, movement begins to return naturally. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in small, steady ways that feel sustainable. If your life feels stuck right now, you do not need to rush out of it. You do not need to make big decisions today. Sometimes, the most helpful step is simply to listen more closely to what the pause is trying to tell you. AI can support that listening, not by filling the silence, but by holding it with you. As you move on with your day, carry one gentle question with you. Not what should I change, but what is asking for my attention. You don't need an answer yet. Awareness is enough for now. Direction does not come from force. It comes from understanding. This was episode 179. Join us tomorrow for the next episode, where we will talk about seeing progress without pressure using AI in 2026. Have a wonderful day.